Hello, welcome to my podcast. My name is Mike Del Ferro, and today I'm talking with the wonderful Ola Asdahl Rokkones from Norway, and he's from maybe the most northern city in the world. He's from Tromsø. If you look on the map where Tromsø is, you're going to be amazed. It's really like so incredibly north, and he's creating all this beautiful music there. We've done many tours. He brought me to Norway several times together with other great musicians, all international. Ola, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Mike. It's a pleasure.
What about the darkness in the northern tip of Norway? It's now January. What about the darkness everybody talks about in Scandinavia?
Yeah, it's true. We have a polar night, but it's actually ended now just a few days ago. So we saw the sun again after 2 months of darkness. So now it's up every day for, already for some hours actually. But today it's cloudy, so we don't see it.
But if the sun is out now, how many hours will it be out?
So astronomically, it will stay up until around 1:30. Goes up around 10, 10:30. But yeah, we're surrounded by mountains, so in general we see it just very low in the horizon. And
So it rises at 10 a.m. and it sets around 1 a.m. At 1 p.m.
Something like that, probably.
Wow.
Yeah, but it changes really fast now, really quickly. So after around the 18th of January, 19th of January, the day gets 15 minutes longer every day. So by the equinox of spring, that's in the middle of March, right?
So in 4 days from now, you'll have 1 hour more of daylight. Only in 4 days. That's how fast it goes.
Yes, it goes really fast.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But it's after, so we called it a polar night from middle of November until middle of January. But actually, it's really, really nice light conditions. So we don't see the sun directly, but we have wonderful sunsets. Like the sun is almost getting up, but you see it like a big sunset that lasts for a long time. And right before and right after, you have the blue hours, so where everything turns blue, quite magical. And then, of course, in the night, it's the northern lights, which you only see in the winter. So people call it the dark period, but actually it's quite luminous.
There is some beautiful light in the darkness there. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. And people put light in their windows, stars, light decorations. Really nice, yeah. But we get more energy now when the sun is back.
I was going to say, don't you miss the daylight?
Yeah.
How far are you north of the polar circles, the Arctic Circle?
Oh yeah, how far? Could it be like 500 kilometers, something like that? Yeah.
Wow.
If we drive, so the roads are not that good, but if we drive like 10 hours south, we'll get to the polar circle.
10 hours. So you're 10-hour drive north of the polar circle, the Arctic Circle. Wow.
Yeah.
And how did this young man, Ola, started creating all this beautiful music in Norway? What's your story?
Tromsø is true that it's remote, yeah, and we're like almost 70 degrees latitude, so that means north of most other places. Still, there are cities that are more north than Tromsø in Norway, but Tromsø, with its 80,000 inhabitants, an airport and hospital, university, it's the northernmost, let's say, significant city. But we're north of most of Greenland, most of Alaska, most of Russia, most of everything actually. It's a really nice place because it's the smallest big city that exists, probably. I mean, 80,000 people, that's not a lot. But as we have a university, we have a music conservatory, and it's with an international airport as well. It's easy to stay connected to other parts of the world, and also there's a lot of students coming here, and that's like me. I came here as a student more than 20 years ago, and I liked it so much. I wanted to stay. So
I mean, it's an amazing place. You brought me there several times. I mean, the landscape is stunning. It's a whole other world, really another world. And uh, yeah, and I also remember that the flight from Oslo to Tromsø is longer than the flight from Amsterdam to Oslo. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, you're so north, man. It's so incredibly freaking north. It's unbelievable.
I guess you're right, but you know, I was also caught by yeah. Let's say I was caught by the mountains, the water, the air, and the people, which all is really special here. You see the mountains everywhere, and the light conditions are amazing. The water is so pure as well as the air, and people are also very pure in their way of being, communicating. They are just really lively, perhaps more direct, more honest in good and bad ways, but it makes more you feel there's like more spirit to the life, and I love this place. Love to be here. And now I have a family as well. But it's true that the nature and people here is inspiring, and being in such a small but let's say significant place gives me also a lot of possibilities. So there are a lot of musicians here, a lot of talented musicians, as we have the conservatory, and still there are not so many musicians. So that gives me a lot of opportunities all the time to play.
So you do play a lot of concerts there, and I know you're organized a lot, also in the region.
Yeah. So my only concern would be that I'm far away from the capital. I mean, all the gatekeepers, those who decide who are the best, who will have all the grants, who will have all the big shows and television. I'm far away from uh, those guys, so I will not get the same fame as if I had been in a capital. But as soon as I go outside Norway, I mean, Norway is remote from any other country. So if I'm in a remote city in Norway, or if I'm in the capital, I'm anyway remote for any other organizer. So that doesn't really that doesn't concern me that much. It's just for I think it's common for any country. The people in capital will have they will follow mainly on what's happening in the capital, and then for anybody else it doesn't matter. So, but it's true that yeah, being here it gives me a lot of opportunities to play, and you can compare it with a football team. I mean, if you play football and you never pass the ball, if you don't get the possibility to kick the ball in a match, you will not develop as a football player, you know. So in my opinion, that goes in music too. You need to have the chance. You need to have the chance to fail, and you need to have the chance to succeed. And I mean, we are never perfect as musicians. So it's just about playing, developing. That's what I do.
You mentioned something about fame before. Do you want to be famous, or are you happy? Because I know you're known in that region, in the northern tip of Norway. Um, Are you happy with that, or would you like to be world famous or more famous, maybe in Scandinavia? Or
Yeah, I mean, uh, well, what is famous? It's what you dreamt about when you were a kid. And now my kids, I have 3 kids. They ask me, "Dad, are you famous?" But and I tell them, "Well, I guess I am because there are a lot of people listening to my music in all parts of the world." But let's face it, what I'm doing is niche music. I'm playing jazz, I'm playing classical music. I will never have big crowds like you have in the pop rock. Anyway, whatever I do, it will be it will not be large crowds coming to my concerts or downloading my music. And the best thing about the world today is actually that you can connect without you can connect directly to your fans all over the world, not through big marketing campaigns or through major labels or your people may actually discover my music from anywhere in the world, and that's the best thing. So I'm very happy with what I'm doing right now because what I'm doing is I play and create music, and often it's very narrow styles of music. I'm not making music to become famous. I just make music that I find interesting and beautiful, and then I hope people will like it. Or if they don't like it, maybe they will find it inspiring in some way. I mean, I don't expect anyone to like all of my music because it's very diverse what I do.
you mentioned classical and jazz, and we played in Amsterdam a couple of weeks ago, and to my surprise, because we have done quite some concerts in the past,
Yeah.
and you started singing
Yeah.
like kind of a Sami kind of style. Can you explain me a little bit about this? It's so beautiful. You have a beautiful voice,
Oh, thank you.
and but also that style.
Yeah, actually, I was not singing Sami music. It was just a Norwegian folk tune, a medieval folk tune. Yeah, I think it's important to. As I play the saxophone, playing an instrument, you feel a technical barrier to performing. To express yourself musically, you have to make it pass through an instrument to produce the sound that you want the audience to hear, to feel. And so first some musical idea resonates in you, and then you must make it pass through the instrument and reach the audience. And sometimes this is the musicality is filtered away through the technique of the instrument. So I do experiment with this just to see what happens if I put up a barrier. Taking off the mouthpiece, for instance, on the saxophone, I use it like a trumpet, I use it like a flute, and it demands another focus from me to really make music outside the conventional terms of playing a saxophone. I have to think about how to make the music sound, not playing automatically on my saxophone like I would do with a mouthpiece, but producing a sound that I think could work in a musical way. And then I need to get more in touch with the musicality within myself, if that makes sense. And this also, and that also goes with singing. I mean, all the big jazz stars, legends, they would always go like, if you can't sing it, you can't play it. I guess that's a quote from Miles Davis, and it's perfectly true. You need to be able to be aware of your musical idea, and then then you can play it. If it's just moving your fingers, whether it be on the piano or a saxophone, it doesn't mean anything. It comes from your mind. It comes like an idea, and then you play it. And sometimes you surprise yourself. You press the wrong key, or you're set off to something different. But still, it starts with a musical idea. So it doesn't mean you have to sing beautifully. Listening to Miles Davis sing, I mean, it's like it didn't sing the pitch, but the pitch was inside his head. And when I sing, I think it invites the audience to get to know me a little better, more personal. Whether it be if I just talk between the tunes, or when I actually sing something, they get to know my voice. They get to know something more about me, and I think it's important for the musical perception of what we do when we have a concert. We're together in discovering music, discovering sounds, feelings. Yeah.
And how do you balance out, because you're both a classical saxophonist and you play jazz, by the way, with a beautiful sound. I love your sound,
Thank you.
this warm sound. I mean, you're from a cold place, but your sound's incredibly warm. Um, how do you balance this out? Do you play both classical concerts in the Northern Norway, or jazz, or how's the balance?
Yeah, I'm actually trained both trained on conservatory level, both as a jazz musician and classical musician. So, and well, what I love is music. Whenever I think about choosing one direction, it always makes me feel bad, because I start to miss the other part of me. And it's not just classical or jazz. I also play a lot of folk music,
Yeah.
from Norway and from other countries as well. I just love music, man. It's and for me, there's some artificial divide between the genres. If I master the techniques of playing within a genre, I should just play it. You would always find, back in the days, professors saying, "Don't play jazz because it will destroy your classical sound," or "Don't play classical because it will destroy your jazz sound."
Yeah, yeah, all that. Yeah,
And it is true. I have enormous respect of genres. It's a very important tool, because if you say I'm going to have a jazz concert tomorrow, and you invite a lot of people, and then you end up playing a lot of Beethoven sonatas, people will get really disappointed, no matter how well you play those Beethoven sonatas, because they want jazz. They're coming there to hear jazz, you know. And the same goes the other way. If you show up in a classical setting and you just play Charlie Parker, they will
oh
get
man, no,
really mad, you know.
that's even worse.
Yes. And so genres is just setting up the expectations of the audience, and it's important. You want to fulfill the expectations of the audience, so that's important. And for me, it means whenever I do something that is within a genre, I need to take those genres really seriously. So I do my best to follow all the idioms of the classical saxophone. I work a lot with that to sound really, really classical,
Yeah,
as well as in jazz. So when I play jazz, I work a lot with my jazz sound. I work with the jazz idiom, both in improvisation and in sound. And for instance, when I play Eastern European folk music, that's another idiom, both when it comes to playing, improvisation, style, sound. It's difference between each country as well. So, yeah. So,
you're very knowledgeable with music from the Balkan, especially Romania.
uh,
Um,
Yeah.
I know more people from Norway, musicians, who are so fascinated by this whole Balkan, Bulgaria, Romania. Is there a connection, or is it just a coincidence?
It's impossible to not be inspired by some of the great Norwegian musicians that have um, found a lot of inspiration in Balkan music, such as Stian Karstensen, the accordion player, who founded the Farmers Market. Amazing musician, playful, and also very, very knowledgeable. Some people say that he reinvented uh, Bulgarian folk music. So, and that's well done when you're actually from Norway. And he's a big hero even in Bulgaria. Uh, yeah, but there are other people too that have dived into this folk music. I think it resonates in most people because it's very playful. A lot of time changes, a lot of funny melodies, funny sounds, very, very challenging music, which makes it interesting to study and very, very rewarding when you actually start to master it. And there's something, of course, something very exotic because it's so different from our very square square way of making music in Western Europe. But yeah, um, I'm fascinated by all folk music. I've worked a lot with Western African folk music too, Senegalese folk music. I've worked a lot with South American folk music. I have a group I work a lot with called Marit Sandvik and Nova Onda, and we play Brazilian music and Brazilian inspired music, jazz. Yeah, so we write our own Brazilian tunes with Norwegian text. How long can you stretch it before you cannot call it Brazilian anymore? But yeah, it's
You're so versatile. That's what I always noticed, and open-minded to any style of music, and that's what we share. It's just like, yeah.
yeah.
What about the ECM sound where Norway's famous for?
Yeah, that's yeah. When you come from Norway, I guess my generation we've always grown up with this ECM on our shoulders because you have all the legends of Jan Garbarek, Terje Rypdal, Jon Christensen. They've always been there, um, showing the path. And perhaps you could say, well, most of Norway borders to Sweden, and actually there's a big difference. There are a lot of ECM artists from Sweden too, but in general, if you wanted to say something general about Norwegian jazz compared to Swedish jazz, it seems like Norwegian jazz is more open and experimental compared to
Oh, yes.
the general Swedish jazz, which is perhaps more.
More straight ahead, more bebop, more, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, but yeah, I mean, if you could say the best jazz players are in Sweden, they really know their stuff, while we just dive into experimental stuff, perhaps not with such with the same overview, but that creates something different, a different sound, generally speaking, of course, in the Norwegian jazz scene. So and when you come from Norway, you're and Scandinavia, you probably people expect that you have um, ECM sound, maybe. So there's a lot of musicians in Norway. Some embrace it, and some they try to distance themselves from it. Perhaps, yeah. It's strange, but it feels very familiar. Also, it's always been there as a part of Norwegian heritage.
You know, I think that that whole ECM sound is so incredibly connected to the incredible dramatic nature you have there. Because the nature you have in your country, I mean, I've traveled a lot, and um, I truly believe that for me, Norway is the most stunning country in Europe in terms of nature. I mean, and that whole ECM sound is so connected to the nature. Yeah, how can it be anything else? I would always almost say.
Thank you. You know what? I actually think that um, when when uh, when I listen to Jan Garbarek, what I hear the most is gypsy influence, influence from gypsy music and Indian music. So the gypsies came to Eastern Europe um, almost 1,000 years ago, and if you listen to the singing intensity of his tone and the ornaments he makes and how he develops rhythm and sound phrasing, it really reminds of the gypsy and their Indian heritage, gypsy music. So, but it has been put into connection to Norwegian folk music, and it's no doubt that Jan Garbarek he is using a lot of folk music elements in his music too, Norwegian folk music elements. But what I hear the most is the connection to gypsy music. You may listen to his music again and with this in mind and see if you can hear it too.
That's I was gonna say. I'm going to listen to Jan Garbarek later today, and listen with a different ear than this
mm,
Nordic sounds I'm used to.
mm.
Yeah.
So, but uh, so some people call it mountain jazz. So yeah, because we have so many mountains in Norway. But on the top of a mountain there is no reverb. So well,
Yeah.
uh, he he still is a groundbreaking musician and inspires a lot of musicians in Norway and abroad. So that's has been a fantastic gift to Norwegian jazz, no doubt. Um, so and I you don't have so many. Um, I mean, looking back through history, how many musicians do you have that really puts up a really new direction in jazz? There are not that many, but there are a lot of talented musicians that make fantastic music. But Jan Garbarek, he's a saxophonist that opened a whole new door into the sound and style of jazz, which is still valid and still to be explored. I mean, like Charlie Parker did, like John Coltrane did, and Michael Brecker did. Yeah, I mean he's up there.
Yeah, he might be the most. If you talk about Norwegian music, I mean, I know many artists like you and other great Norwegian musicians because I've been there and I've explored it. But it's true that I think that people who know a little bit less about Norway, they would all say, yeah, Jan Garbarek, right? That would be
Yeah.
the guy. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
But then, so building your own style, building your own musicality. If I, for myself, I really love to approach the sound of Jan Garbarek and approach the sound of what you say, the ECM or the Scandinavian jazz. I feel obviously at home in that sound, but still, it doesn't mean that I only work with Jan Garbarek's music.
No, no, no.
I find my inspiration in a lot of different artists, and working with the sound also means that you copy. I use a lot of time copying Charlie Parker John Coltrane, also Michael Brecker, McCoy Tyner, working with a lot of different sounds and styles, and really thorough. To be able to express yourself within a style, it means that you need to know where your limits are for the sound, where the limits. I also worked a lot with the music of Dexter Gordon, and just to approach the power he had in his sound, and the phrasing, timing, and the sound itself. It's really, really rewarding. And then the more you get into it, the more you get into the sound of Coltrane or into the sound of Dexter Gordon, or then you will be able to choose if you want to sound like that or not. If you don't know, it's just very you will not you will not have the full potential of your sound. You will not. It will be more by chance if you.
Or limited.
Or limited. Or by chance if you manage to get the sound you want or not. All instruments they have a certain range of sound palettes that you may use to express yourself. And if you only choose one way, you cut off a large part of your ability to express yourself.
And what about your orchestral works? Because you're both a composer and you performed a lot with orchestras.
Yes. So in classical music, I'm not a big classical composer at all. When I compose mainly jazz tunes. But for classical music, I work a lot with contemporary composers, and it's really interesting to see how they can develop the sound of the saxophone in a classical setting. That could be using it in a very classical way, like you would expect from a romantic composer, or in a contemporary way where you try to make as many elements with a wide expression as possible when it comes to sound techniques. And working with composers, it's very interesting because they would not try to write what is most convenient for my instrument. They would just write what they want to hear musically. They try to develop their own ideas. So when a work is finished, often there are passages that could be really, really demanding. I have to work for months to just put one bar in place, and that makes it very interesting. If I would have composed myself, I would do something that comes easily to my instrument, or it's at least very easy to fall into this trap. So this is what I like a lot with working with contemporary composers. You get completely new sounds, completely new works, and there's also beauty in notated score. That okay, I may play it according to the wishes of the composer with my touch, of course, and then in 1 year or 10 years or 100 years, somebody else can pick up this music and play it again, and with their touch, but mainly according to the wish of the composers, and that's fantastic. It's amazing. So I work with also the standard repertory for saxophone. I played the Glasnow concerto dozens of times with orchestra, and I must be honest to say, each time I play it, I discover something new. Interpretation. So it's easy to discover interpretation in jazz because each time you go on stage, you your solo is a little bit different, and the vibe with the audience is different. But the same thing you find in classical music too, but it's much more on a subtle level. The interaction with the orchestra, the intensity of the tone, dynamics, phrasing. There's so much to work with on a very, very detailed level, which is very, very interesting. And it's amazing. You can listen to Vivaldi or Bach or Mozart on recordings. All recordings of Mozart sound differently, and yet he's the most played composer of all times, probably. That's incredible.
Yeah. There are a zillion interpretations of everything. Huh?
Yeah. And actually, I use getting back to this professor saying, don't play jazz because it destroys your classical tone, or vice versa. I use a lot of jazz techniques when I play classical music, not to provoke or to break the idiom of the classical music, but because if I use it very gently in a subtle way, I may actually be able to express myself in a more varied way. It gives me a larger palette of expression. I still have to stay within the classical domain of the saxophone, but being able to put more feeling into the music, it's not a bad thing.
No, I mean, there are so many beautiful sounds which you can incorporate in jazz and any kind of music. I mean, it's the same with piano. I have a classical background, and I'm very grateful for that because it really helped me in creating a sound on the piano and all of that. And that's actually thanks to classical music.
Exactly.
I mean, Ola, man, there is so much beautiful music you have created and to be explored.
Thank you.
I'm going to put your website in the show notes of this podcast so people will be able to find you and follow you on all the platforms. Like you said, you're far away from anything else, but your music is listenable everywhere in the world.
Thank you so much.
And I want to thank you for this beautiful conversation. And I hope that we get to play again soon. I've got so many fond memories of the landscapes. It's another world where you're from.
Absolutely,
So, yeah.
But likewise, Mike, I hope we'll be able to play again. It was such a pleasure to play with you in Amsterdam a couple of weeks ago. So I hope we'll have the chance to play again very soon.
And one final question: what's your life motto?
Making music is just one way of living, and sharing is the most important. No matter how you live your life, sharing with others.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Ola.
Thank you so much, Mike. It was a pleasure and an honor to take part in this podcast. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening. If you enjoy my podcast, then please subscribe, leave a rating and a review. Please visit my website, mikedelferro.com, where you also will find links to my other podcast, Self-Management for Musicians. You will also find links to my music and my socials. And of course, please share this podcast with anyone interested. Nothing beats the word of mouth. Thank you.